I'm Joseph,
I'm Tyson.
And I'm Madeline.
and we're going to go over the project report here first. So, we're doing a task management application and our components. Some basic functionality, like, how the website looks. We got title. There's forms to add, tasks and stuff, like here. As you can see, task title, description, date, priority, add task button. There's a button, guys. It's amazing.
Yay.
Works.
All right. So into the tasks here. So I was tasked with creating the HTML, and in this, I added the CSS and JS links to it. The CSS in the header here, and the JS down at the bottom script, bottom of the body. Then to create a div which would hold all the content. Content being, of course, in this container class. Title for the project, all the forms. This whole form box contains our inputs with placeholders for, task title, description, and whatnot, so the user actually knows what's put in the specific boxes. We have the input date here, and then down here, it's the select box for the level of priority you want for your task, low, medium, or high, and then the button for actually adding the task. And of course, adding on to this, IDs and classes. So, my group mates here can actually use them with their CSS and JS files, like container, task form, title, things like that. Simple stuff.
So I was tasked with creating this JavaScript file right here. So the first task I'd do was basically just link it to the HTML file, which basically is done within the HTML file itself. The next part was to create a 2D array of variable to store the task given by the users, and then use temporary variables to store that input. So what I did right here is whenever someone clicks submit, I created a object array, and then right up here, it takes whatever was entered into the task title, puts it into the title section. Whatever was entered in the description, insert into the description section. The date that was entered, it's put into the due date section. And then lastly, the priority is stored in the priority section. And then we take that new array and we push it into the 2D array that's going to be up here. This one will hold all the tasks. This is basically a temporary task holder. So then right now, to check to make sure that the task has been stored, an alert was given to display the title of the first task that was stored, which was given about. So like down here, fishing, go fishing, put a date in, put a medium in, put the medium priority in. And then it shows right here that after you hit the add task button, the fishing task has been added to the 2D array, showing that we have stored it. And then the last one I had was to create a search function, basically to search for a specific task when entered. And so right here, when this new function basically takes in a task name, searches through the task holder 2D array, and then searches through each of its values. If the name matches the title, then an alert was given saying the task has been found, and it displays its description basically as an alert. This is just like a skeleton code basically for when we display stuff, but this is basically the whole idea of what we want to do for search tasks. And now we can go on to the next part.
Okay.
Let me just
For me, I need to share my screen, which will be this one. Okay. For my tasks, admittedly, I'm a little further behind. I've created my styles sheet, which is linked through the HTML. I've created a kind of basic skeleton right now. I need to go through and rename my classes to work with everything. Right now I have a scroll wheel. So once we have, I have it labeled from my homework assignments, but once we have all our classes names figured out and finalized, I'll be able to put everything that I need into my tasks. But I've started to play with a little bit of the cards, as well as playing with some font families and font sizes for us to go over. Additionally, there's the hidden scroll bar in my tasks. I've been working on looking up the code to make it so that when we click to complete a task, like when we complete this task, it'll change color temporarily at least, so that we can see that the task has been added, and it'll go in here. I am also working on creating 3 palettes that are aesthetically pleasing, and looking up the ways that I can provide for my team members the best code to make it so that, you know, if we have our code up and running, let me grab this again real fast. We'll be able to have like a little button somewhere up here so that people can pick a color combination that they like, as well as looking for ways that in priority that whatever color scheme they pick, that the low, medium, and high priority will each have their own color to kind of represent what is necessary to catch people's eyes. And I think that was my last task. And those are both things I'm finalizing right now, so that they stand out.
So the modified and new tasks that I added, as shown right here, is a modified. I modified the create variables and user input, which are then manipulated by the functions. I realized that I don't need to like manipulate anything or any variables, since they're already changed within the text boxes itself. So that's why that submit function, it basically inputs anything that was written in those text boxes into the new tasks. So that way I didn't need to edit any already user input variables, and that saved me a lot of time. But then the new task I added is storing the task array into browser, into local storage. So that way when anyone reloads the thing, their tasks are still in there and they can retrieve them whenever they want to, or they can change them wherever they want to. That one's gonna take me a bit to process all of it and to actually get everything stored into local storage, but that is a new task I added.
I had some challenges with like how I was going to structure the site, like how many divs, should I put everything in one div or not? But in the end, I just decided one div was perfectly fine, as we can just use classes to divvy up the content if we need to.
A challenge I had was storing the enter tasks into arrays, and then since the submit button basically reloads all the data, so I decided to use a temporary array to store all the data in, and then put it into a overall temporary task array. So that way, the task array isn't reloaded, but the temporary one is. So that way, new tasks are stored and they're not lost.
And one challenge I faced was, again, I mentioned finding the at least 3 attractive color palettes. I purchased a book that provides a handful of colors so that I can narrow down my choices, and then I'll be submitting pictures to my teammates for final approval. So we, you know, each have a color palette maybe we prefer. Additionally, this one isn't finished, but I've been kind of struggling with the CSS for it to fit everything so that we can reflect our mock-up. I have a friend who works in this field that I'm going to be meeting with over the next couple of weeks to go over to finalize and fix any of my bugs on my end for my teammates.